Hello folks, in a previous video of my channel we have made this to-do list application using Vanilla.js. Now in this video we will make the same app using React. So first let's take a quick look how the app works. So here I can write a to-do. So let's write JavaScript and I can click on the plus icon and I have added my to-do. So now I can also check and uncheck these boxes and I can also delete the to-dos. So it's really simple. So now let's create one React app and build the same app. So to do that, in the console, I will write npm create wait at latest. Now it will take some time and start asking me some questions. So the first question is, what is my project name? Let's name it React. And now I have to choose the option of React and I will choose the language of JavaScript. Now it is asking me to go inside the React folder. And then we have to do npm install. And while it is installing the dependencies, let me just show you the basic structure of a React app. So we have our index.html file over here, and here we have an div with the ID of root, and my whole React app is inside this ID of root. So that is how React works. Now we also have an src folder where we will write our React code. So here our app will start from my main.jsx file. And as you can see in this file, it is taking the reference of the root ID. And this will start my React app in this app component. And this app component comes from the app.jsx file. And here it has already written some code. So, and it is also importing few CSS from the app.css and the main and the index.css files. So now we will remove everything. So first of all, it has already installed everything. So we will run our React app by typing npm run dev, and it will host the app on it with a particular URL. So let's wait for some time and see. Yeah, we got the URL, and when we click on it, we got our first React app, and this is a basic counter app. But now we will remove everything and start building our to-do list app from scratch. So in the app.jsx, let me clear out the function app. So every React app will start from this function, and here we have to return something, and whatever we will return should be within one tag. So we cannot return two tags here. So let's name this application to-do list React. Yeah, so we got our to-do list React here, and instead of this empty tags, let's name it main. And it has some error because the slash will be in front. Yeah, so we got our React app. Now we don't need this svg file, so we can remove it, and we will need the use state later. So now first of all, let's start building the React app. We can actually copy the same structure of the app from our index.html file over there. So let's copy it, and we will paste the same thing in the app.jsx. And also one more thing is there, that React doesn't use class, React uses class name. So wherever there is class, let's replace it with class name. And that is because this is not HTML, this is JSX. And because there is no similar names, so it is renamed to class name. And now inside my container, I have to write my individual to-dos. So now in the HTML, I can simply write one to-do like this, and in the similar way, I will write in my React also. So here what I will write first of all one div with the class name of to-do, and inside this to-do I have my paragraph of whatever the to-do is there. So let's say write Python as of now. So we got a to-do, and here I will have one div, another div with the class name of actions. And if you want to know about this structure, you can watch the video of the Vanilla.js app, and there we have discussed this, but you can also follow along. So, and here I will have two types of inputs. So first input will be a checkbox. So this will check whether my to-do is done or not, and we will have one button, and this button is basically my delete button. And yeah, that's it. That's all we need. And now we have our to-do, and now let's start adding some styles. So we are getting the styles from app.css file, and we can also copy paste the styles from here. So we will copy every style over here, and we will simply paste it in the app.css file. We have written all styles from scratch in the other video. So as you can see, we got the looks of our app over here. We can close this. So let's write Python in my vanilla JS app, and okay, let's add it. And as you can see, it's same in both places. Okay, so my React app is also saying write vanilla, to-do list vanilla, and that is because we have copied. So let's change it to to-do list React. Yeah, so our basic app is ready. So now let's start adding some functionality. So first of all, I have to create my to-dos. So in React, we have two kinds of variables, the normal variables and state variables. So my to-dos will be a state variable because we have to change the state. And here I will do to-dos and set to-dos, and I will use the useState hook. useState. And initially I will have one array with my initial to-dos. So let's keep it empty array as of now, and this will be set to-dos, not set to-do. Yeah, and now also I will have my another state variable, and this will be my input value. So whatever value I am giving as input, so this will be that, and input val, and my function will be set input val. If you want to know more about state, how useState hook works, I also have another video. I will keep it somewhere in the description. So yeah, these two state variables we need. And now what do we need? So when I have my input, where I am taking my input, I want to get like whatever I'm getting over here. So here I will have to write one onChange handler. And so React basically uses this kind of handlers to to add the functionalities. So what this onChange handler will do is it will call it is actually callback function. So it is basically referencing to a function, and this write to do is a function that we have to write right now. So what will this write to do function do? So first of all, let's create a function write to do, and first of all simply console log whatever we are getting. So we will simply do that, and this write to do will get one like this e is like the basic object. So whenever we are writing something over here, it is referencing as this e, and we can simply console log this e to find out what this e is. So we will open the console, and in the console, whenever I'm writing something over here, as you can see, we are getting something, and here we have something called target, and inside this target we have one value. So I cannot seem to find the value over here. So let's directly print e.target, and let's see what do we get. Let's add few more things. Okay, let's refresh the app, and let's okay, as you can see, the e.target is this one, and if I directly print e.target.value, it will print whatever the value is over there. So if I refresh now and let's write something, as you can see, it is printing out this right. So we are getting whatever we are writing in the input bar, we are getting that. So now this same thing should be stored inside my to-dos whenever we are clicking on the plus button. So now in the plus button, like in the button add to do, we have to, and also one more thing, in React we really don't need these IDs. So if you want, you can remove it. And now in the button we need another handler, and this will be onClick handler. So what this onClick handler will do, it will call another function, and let's name this function as add to do. And now we have to write this add to do function. So I will write a function add to do, and what this add to do will do is it will simply add the to dos. So first of all, let's simply do something. We have my to dos which is an empty array, and so to add something in the to dos, what I have to do is I have to add the values like this. So it has set to dos, and it will get the value of previous to dos first of all. And what do we want? We want a new to do to be added over here, and yeah, and also first of all we have to do another thing, is whenever we are writing this to do, whenever the writing is complete, what we want to do is we want to assign this value to my input value. So how can we do that? We can simply do it like this. We can call the setter function, and we can write e.target.value. So now in place of console logging e.target.value, let's console log the input value, and let's see what do we get. So let's refresh, and let's write this. So as you can see, this input value, the value of the e.targetWord value is getting assigned to this input value. And now when we are coming to my add to do function, what do we want? We want when I'm clicking on this plus button, my input value should be added with the to dos. So we can use the spread operator over here, and so this will spread out all the to dos whatever we have, and then it will add another to do, and that is my input value. And now if I console log this to do, so let's say console log to dos, and let's see what we have. So we can refresh, and now let's write one to do, write Python plus, and then write JS plus. So as you can see, the to dos are getting added. Now it is one behind, but if I just add another one, as you can see, the to dos are getting added into the array, and which is absolutely fine. This is what we want. Now the issue is not an issue. What we want, the feature should be when I'm clicking on plus, instead of adding it in the array, it should be directly adding as to dos over here. And how can we do that? Yeah. So first of all, let's also do another thing, and that is inside my container, it is manually placing this write Python to do. Now I don't want this. What I want is from my to dos array, this to dos should be kept dynamically. Now this is something we used to do in our JavaScript, like vanilla JavaScript with lot of code, like we had to append child, this, that, many things we had to do. Now in React, you will see how this is very simple actually, and we will use the map method to do that. So what I will write inside my input container is that, not input container, the to do container, is that I will here in second bracket, I will write to dos dot map. I will use the map method, and here I will have one to do first of all, and this is one individual to do inside the to dos array, and I can also add one second method, and that will be index. We will check that later. So first of all, I have one to do, and what do we want to do with the to do? I want to return few things. So what do I want to return? I basically want to return this thing below, and this thing is basically this whole to do code. This thing I want to return. So now it has written basically for Python, and now you will see how this will dynamically change the to dos. So instead of Python, I will write to do, and now you see the magic. We have write Python, write JS, and to write SQL, and so my to dos are dynamically getting added, and this is absolutely fantastic. This is how we are doing all this task in such small lines of code when we compare with our vanilla JS. So yeah, this is actually the power of React. So okay, let's move further. We have to add few more functionalities also. Okay, now if I look at the console, it is actually yelling at us and saying that each child in a list should have a unique key prop. And what is the meaning of this? It is saying that when we are passing every to do should at least have one key. And that is actually very simple over here. So we have our to dos array, and inside from to dos we are passing one to do, and along with that we can also pass the index of the to do, which will be my second argument in the map method. And we can basically pass this index as the key. So wherever I have my div of class name as to do, here I can add one key, and I will add the index as the key. So now if I refresh, you see, now let's add some to dos, write Python, and then write JS, and as you can see my errors are gone, and this works absolutely fine. So now we can also check, uncheck, and do all of these things. So now let's now only one thing is remaining, and that is we have to add my delete functionality. And how to do that? So now we have this delete button over here, and here also we want to do the same thing, and that is we want to add one on click. And whenever we are clicking on this delete, what do we want to do? We want to call one function, and so let's name this function as del to do. But in this case we actually cannot delete it like this, because we have to pass the index of the to do. So here I can write one del to do function. Now this del to do is actually need to be passed the index as the argument, and to pass that one I have to add an additional layer over here, So I have one function which is invoking this del to do function, and here I can pass my index. And so this is how we have to call the del to do, and now we can pass this index over here. And these names need not be same. I can simply pass idx over here, or let's name it as to do index, or let's name this one index, and let's name the bottom one. Okay, the bottom one should be index because we are passing the to do and the index over here. So we can change this value to anything. We can also keep it index, or we can also make it to do index or anything. So yeah, now in the del to do function, what do we want to do? We want to filter out the to dos which doesn't have this specific index, because this to do we want to delete, so we want the other to dos. So let's also add a few more to dos for now. So write SQL, and let's say write C sharp. Yeah, and how can we filter out the to dos? And to do that, we have to use the JavaScript filter method. And whatever we are filtering, we have to set the remaining to dos with that. So we have to call the set to dos function, and inside this function, first of all, I have my previous to dos. And what do we want to do with my previous to dos? So what I want is, I want to do my previous to dos dot filter. And when I'm doing my filter, I am getting one individual to do, and that individual to do is, you can name it as let's say previous to do. And also we have one index, and let's name it as previous to do index. Now what do we want? We want is all the other to dos that doesn't have this to do index that is being passed inside this function, and we can simply return previous to do. Okay, there is some kind of error throwing over here. Okay, return previous to do index is not equals to my to do index. So that will be my function, and this is throwing an error. And why is that? Let's try to analyze. Let's bring it down. Okay, it says that unexpected at something at line number 19. Okay, let's see what is wrong in line number 19. So this, let's keep it in first bracket, and then it is doing prev to do's filter, and then after filter it is taking these two things. And okay, I believe there should be a bracket over here, and this one should be removed. And lastly, there should be a removal of this bracket or something. So some issues with brackets. So let's rewrite this function. So we will simply write set to dos, and here we have my previous to dos. And what I want to do with this previous to dos is that I want to do is previous to dos dot filter, and inside I will have my previous to do, and I will have my previous to do index. And what I want to do is I want to return something, and I want to return is where previous to do index is not equal to my to do index. So it will return everything other than this one. So, and what it will do is it will set the remaining array accordingly. So whenever I click on delete, it will set the remaining array accordingly. So let's log out the to dos over here to get a better idea. Log out the to dos. So let's refresh, and let's add few more things. Write Python, and write JS, write SQL, and write C sharp. Yeah, and now when we check in the console, I have these things, and when I click on delete, as you can see, I have some outputs. So I can click on the delete for the Python, and as you can see, the last one that I deleted is showing up over here. So it will basically refresh all the to-dos, and it will show the remaining to-dos. So that's how the delete function works. And also here I am doing one thing wrong, and that is whenever we are adding something, this thing should be blank. And how to make it blank is very simple, and we have to go inside my add to do function here. And here what we can do is simply we can set our input value to an empty string. And yeah, that's the thing over here. And also let's see one more thing. let's say I have something empty, and now if I click on add, it is still adding, which should not be the case. And to do that, we simply have to do is this thing. We have to wrap everything under another if condition, and that is if my input value is not equal to an empty string, only then you do all of these things. So now if I refresh and if I click on empty stuff, nothing is working. So I can write Python and my normal to-dos will be added and deleted just like that. It's very simple. So now we can simply remove this console logs. We don't need this anymore. And yeah, our to-do app is ready using React. Lastly, before closing the video, we will break down this app into separate components. Because React is a framework of states and components, so it's a good practice to break down this app into separate components to make it easier to maintain. Now, this is a small to-do list application, but a larger application will be easier to maintain like this. And yeah, also there's one thing, and you got it right, and that is whenever I am writing something, this is not getting empty. And that is because we have to add one more thing over here, and we have this on change in the input, and we also have to pass one value over here. And this value should be set to input val. And so now whenever I add something, let's say write SQL, it will be empty in the input bar. Yeah, that's it. So now let's try to understand first what are different components. So this app is one component, and in React what we can do is we can make separate components, and inside the app we can assemble all the different components. So first of all, let's create one input component, and let's try to understand what is happening over here. So here inside this return, this is the part that is my input component, and that is my input container and my button, and so basically this div. So what I can simply do is I can write another function, and I can name this function, let's say input container. And this function, what this will have is it will have this part. So it will also have one return, and this return will have simply this div. And so let's copy paste over here. And now there is an issue, and the issue is that this this input container, it doesn't know what is this input val and write to do and all of these things. And so what can we do over here is we have to pass this as props. So we can destructure and pass the props over here. So now it will know what is input val, it will also know what is write to do, and it will also know what is add to do, because that also need to be passed. So now we have to understand how can we actually use my input container. So now any component I have, in the end all of them will be rendered inside my app component, because that is the starting point of my app, and this is basically the main component which will assemble all other components. So inside my app component, I can actually pass this input container. So let's say below my heading, I can simply write here input container, and yeah, I can pass it like this. And when I save, I see we have two inputs over here. So I have my inputs that is coming from below this one, and here I can add something, let's say write C#, and so write C# will be added over here. And also I have another input at the top. So let's write something over here, write Java, and when I click on add, I see nothing happens. And that is because this input container, it is getting this input value, write to do and everything, but we are not really passing anything from our app component to the input container. So these things also need to be passed in the component as props. So what can we write here is simply input val. What is my input val? So my input val is my state variable, and that is input val. And also I have to pass my write to do and add to do. So write to do and add to do are functions, so I have to pass like this, write to do, and for the add to do also I have to pass my add to do. So now let's see what happens if I write something over here. Let me write. So now as you can see, whenever I am writing something over here, it is writing in both. And why is that happening? And that is happening because simply these input containers, these both have the same class name, and so it is basically treating the both as the same. So ideally what we can do right now is we can simply remove our inputs and buttons which is coded over here, because we will now be using only this component. So let me simply remove this part, and it will also work as expected. So let me refresh and let me write Python, and as you can see, it works perfectly fine. So we have used one component, and now for the to-dos also we will break this down into few other components. So let's make few to-dos. Write Python, write JS, and yeah, that's it. And so for my to-dos, so first let's make another component, and let's name it as to-do container. So below my function input container, I will make another component, and let's name it to-do container. So this will basically contain all my to-dos. And similarly, I also need to pass few functions and variables over here. So first let's just write what we need to write, and that is, inside this return, what we will have this whole part, and that is this div container, and inside whatever we will have all of it. So let me just copy and paste it over here, and it is saying some error because it should be function. Yeah, that's right. And now in the to-do container, what we need to pass these things. So we need to pass my to-do, and we also need to pass the del to do because we are deleting. Yeah, and now it will have this del to do and the to do also. We don't need to pass the to do, we actually need to pass the to dos because it is accessing the to dos, and inside the map it is creating the to do and index. Yeah, so this is it. And we can simply, after the input container, we can pass this to do container. Yeah, and here we need to pass those props. And what are those props again? First of all, we have one to dos, and this to dos we will pass the state variable, and that is to dos. And next thing, we have one del to do function, and we will pass the del to do over here. And yeah, as you can see, we have two set of to dos right now. And now let me add something. Write C#, and what do we see? We see C# is getting added twice, and that means our container, our to do container component is also working fine, and which means we can remove all of this code. Yeah, so now we only have one set. We can write SQL, and it also works fine. So now we have our to do container, but what we can do here is we can create another to do inside this to do container, and which will be another component, like a nested component, and which will make the app more simpler. Actually, you can say that this app is getting more and more complex like this, but for bigger apps, this is how we make it more simple. So let's create another component by the name of to do, and here what we will pass is, we will pass every individual to do. So we have this to do part over here, and which is starting from my class name of not class name, which is starting from my class name of to do and key index and whatever is there. So it will start from over here, and it will take this part. So yeah, and we need few more things over here, and those things are simply, I need my to do, individual to do, I need my index, and I also need this del to do. Now we need to pass this to do component inside my to do container. So in place of this whole code, I can replace it by my to do component. So let me simply write over here return to do, and that's it. And now we also need to pass the props. We need to pass my individual to do as to do, and then the index as the index, and also the del to do function, which is actually coming from my app component. So it is coming down to its child and then to its grandchild. So this is also a concept that is called prop drilling. We will discuss this later. And also in the to do, let me simply assign the key as index, and we can remove the key from here. So yeah, now we can test this app out. So we can check, uncheck, and we can also delete. Let's write something. Write JS, write chat GPT. We can add, we can check, uncheck, do whatever we want, and also delete. So yeah, so now as you can see, my whole to-do list app is ready, and this app is working perfectly fine. in the app component we have some functions and state variables, and we are using our components instead of writing everything from the scratch. And these are the components: input container, to do container, and to do. Now we can also do one more thing. In the src folder we can create another folder called components, and inside these components we can pass the specific components. This should be a folder, this should not be a file with no extension and nothing. So yeah, I mean, that's it for this video. We will do this later when we have more complex apps. So this is how you can break it down, and you can also pass it from other folders with components. Yeah, so thanks for watching. Bye bye.